Here is another German Christmas recipe. I'm baking honey cake today, Honigkuchen, and that's one of my husband's favorite Christmas treats. You need quite a few ingredients, but don't get overwhelmed. It's not as complicated as it looks. So what you need is some flour, cane sugar, honey, butter, milk, eggs. Then you need the zest of about 6 lemons and 4 oranges, some ground ginger, lightly roasted almonds that are finely chopped. Then you need some gingerbread spice, some German gingerbread spice. And you can get this at some German or European online stores, but oftentimes they are sold out at Christmas time. You can easily make this yourself with my recipe, which I do on a regular basis. And the recipe for that is here and also down below in the video description, which you have to open with a click on these 3 little dots. Then there are 2 ingredients that you are probably not familiar with, but some of you who have grandmother's recipe book might have come across it. So one of it is Hirschhornsalz and the other one is Potasche. So for the Potasche you use potassium carbonate. It's the same thing. And then for the Hirschhornsalz you can just use baker's ammonia. And for the baker's ammonia, that really stinks. And that's the stuff they used to hold on the women's noses when they fainted in the past. So that is something that really awakes the dead. It's not pleasant. But why are we using this and not baking powder? The reason is that baking powder is a baking agent that rises the dough upwards, while these are baking agents that let them rise to the sides too. So that is the difference. Some people still substitute it with regular baking powder. Who am I to argue about the result? If you're happy with the result with baking powder, there's nothing against it. All my recipes are on my blog. This one is no exemption, and you will find the quantities for this recipe on this blog post in a printable section, and you can switch between the metric and the US customary measurements. The first thing I need to do is to get the zest from these oranges and from the lemons. Now that was a little bit labor intense. If you're not into that, there's also something like this. You can buy dried orange peel and lemon peel, but it's not as tasteful or as aromatic as the fresh, of course. The next step is melting the honey, the butter, and the sugar in a pot. I don't want it to get too hot, just melting it and incorporate the sugar into the honey. The sugar is dissolved. I can take it off from the heat. And now I use the milk. And the citrus zest goes in here too. And I smell the lemon and oranges, but also the honey, and this is a smell of Christmas. Wonderful. Okay, now I want to mix the dry ingredients. So I have the flour here. I'm also adding the Potasche and Hirschhornsalz. Then I need a teaspoon of the ground ginger and a teaspoon of my German gingerbread spice. Also the nuts go in here, and I mix this all together. Now it's time to mix this all together. So I start with the liquid. By the way, I just added a pinch of salt to the flour mix. I forgot to mention that. So I'm already adding some of the flour mixture. And then I will slowly add some more while I'm kneading this or mixing this. Once the dry ingredients have been incorporated, I start adding the eggs one after another. In Germany, we buy the honey cake in very small loaves, and for that, I have gotten these tiny little bread pans. You don't need these necessarily. You can just use your regular bread pan. I just wanted to be as authentic as possible, so that's why I got these. They're not too expensive, so I decided to just go for it and make my husband happy with something that is just like in Germany. All right, so I have to fill this now with the dough, batter, and I already preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. When you're using a regular bread pan, then you bake this for 75 minutes. After 35 minutes, you should cover it with some aluminum foil to prevent it from getting too dark on the top. I will probably need less baking time since I have smaller loaves, and I will just use a toothpick to see when it's baked through. By the way, some people bake this as a sheet cake and then glaze it with some sugar. That's an option too, but I prefer this way. That's how I know it from my childhood. I think one can say that this has turned out beautifully. Before I cut this open, I want to explain you a little bit about the North German way of German Gemütlichkeit in winter. So we eat this at coffee time, and coffee time actually in the north of Germany often means tea time. We drink a lot of black tea, and that black tea gets spiced up a little bit with either some orange juice or some lemon juice, and quite often also with some rum. And then we sweeten it with this kind of sugar. It's like a rock sugar. We call it candies, and Krümel candies in this case because they are very small pieces. In the north of Germany, we also call this Klönsche. So that is how we enjoy our Honigkuchen in winter and also other treats. Let me cut one. So I will use the second one. So this is what it looks like here. It's a rather dense bread, and we eat it with some really cold butter. And you can also use some salted butter, that's okay. It tastes good too. And that's all it needs. It has enough spices and taste in it to just taste heavenly with just the butter. This has a lot of wonderful taste. I hope you like this video. I hope you like this recipe. If you want to check out more of my recipes, there are plenty on this channel. Thank you for watching, and come back next week for a new video.